Thank you for listening to the Third Watch News Update and a study on eschatology, which I think will fascinate those who pay attention to topics like this. And I just want to tell you all that there have been moments in this that I just find this is really where I end up all the time. You know, I did not start reading the Bible because I was a well-read person. I didn't actually read it all. And actually, as far as math and science, it would be mathematically impossible. And I mean this in all honesty, that I am just not good at math. But for some reason or another, this made so much sense. And if you've ever had difficulties in math and science, and suddenly the light bulb goes off, it's like a mathematical impossibility for me to go from having a D to an A in this class. And I mean, when I think of math and science, because it all made sense when it comes to physics and laws of the universe. When we talk about the science behind the planetary alignments, and just a very fascinating topic. So I was definitely not that person. But when we talk about great things in the sky, one of the things I find fascinating about the constellations, because you can see the bear and the lion and the Big Dipper and Little Dipper, and this is the only topic. If you really want to lay out a good case for the signs and the heavens, and I went as far as getting a large telescope where I can actually see some of these events occur. But like anything else, this is the only area that I at least know a little bit more about. And it's really the study of this topic, and that topic being now astronomy. And a friend of mine who was really sweet enough to get me a book, I'm going to go into more detail because there's just a lot there. Well, we're going to go into this because it's the only topic that makes sense to me. There's a lot of things that have been thrown out at a lot of people about the Bible, where we're at in the timeline of events. I know that stuff really kind of throws me off, because I actually have to have something that actually makes sense to me. And since I've become more keen to studying these things about the sun, moon, and stars and the wonders in heaven, let's go to these topics and quotes here. So God created the sun on the first day, but created all the other lights in the heavens on the fourth day. But what did God create from all that? Okay, so Genesis 1, chapter 1. Sun, moon, and stars were created to provide light in the day and some light at night for signs and seasons. And then you can go on to read this. It says in Psalm 147, He counts the numbers of the stars, He calls them all by name. Great is the Lord, mighty in the power, and His understanding is infinite. And then Job 9, 8 and 9. He alone spreads our heavens and the treads of the waves of the sea. He made the bear, Orion, and Pleiades. And then you'd have to come to this. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is good and acceptable in the perfect will of God. Well, I could definitely not prove that, because I again goes back to I'd had to literally be transformed, because there's no way I could understand math, science, and physics. But I believe, because so many of us who can actually prove I was a D student in this area, and then I can actually make sense of physics now, because it would be impossible. If you know something radical's happen when you go from having D's in class and then A's. And that's what happened to me in 1991, and that's why I love this topic, eschatology, and really the study of prophecy. And I started taking classes, and I studied, and anybody that knows me, my nose was right in the book, which that's never been the case. I really loved my social life, and anyone at 21 years old, if you have a social life, that becomes your priority. But for me, this became just a very, very amazing experience, just seeing the change in my attitude about school, and then, of course, math and science. And then this is one of the things I found very fascinating. Revelation 12, 3, and 6. And there will appear another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his head. Okay, so I want to show you guys something. This is a very, very unique event, once in 7,000 years, on September 23rd, 2017. Now, the meaning to Revelation 12 and this sign, you have to look at where the sun is and why of the significance, because the moon, where it will be laid at the feet, it does this zigzag thing. And if you really want to get a better idea what that is, you're going to want to watch Clarke's video. And he just had a conference where he's really lays out something that's very fascinating. So we're going to go a little bit into what Clarke's conference in this topic on this actual sign. Do you know that when this sign occurs, okay, there are a couple things that happen before September 23rd. So let's go there. Okay, so there's a great solar eclipse, and that's August 21st, 2017. And it's called the King Constellation. This is 33 days before the Feast of Trumpets sign, September 23rd, 2017. Coincidence. The 33 day is very important. We'll get to that. This great eclipse occurs in the King Constellation at the King Star. The King Constellation and the King Star. King Star is Jupiter. They talk about that. What makes this even more significant is the time in which we're in. Let's look at where the course of this is occurring. It's gonna literally divide the nation. And you can see from this diagram, I'm going to show you another diagram here. And that's very significant because of what's happening. President Trump and this nation, and a lot of things are being divided. This nation's very divided. So there's always 2 very interesting points to this. So look at how the nation's divided. You can see from a larger map, this solar eclipse is going to divide. Now, we started out with a beginning, how God brought division between night and day. And at twilight, there's something very significant because it's like a 1-minute moment between sundown and sunrise, or sundown and dark. So this event, great solar eclipse, is August 21st, 2017. What makes it even more interesting is the response, the public. People are selling up. They're going to hotels. I mean, this has become, it's going to be a very big event because of how the solar eclipse occurs. People are watching this, and it is one of the most fascinating topics. Obviously, and look at it. Total solar eclipse splits America in half. And, of course, the sun will be turned into darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. This is really preparing. This is like the clarion call. A lot of people look at, like the canary in coal mine. They're always looking for that one thing that would give us the indicator on the map. So, again, it goes into this, and you can read for this. I'm going to let this roll. And, you know, I think when you watch, Scotty explains it in a way that's really fascinating, and I hope we could do a little bit more. I've been following Scotty for, since 2010, and I always find these things really fascinating. It's almost 7 years. A lot of people would throw out these dates, and but the significance to these dates is because of we're in a different period. We're in the year of 577, and then of course the new moon on September 23rd, 24th, and the significance of that 33 day is in fulfillment of a promise. So that should say something. Just there's obviously a lot happening in America. By the time we arrive to August 21st, we cannot predict what's going to happen between now and August 21st. But my sense is that as things start to escalate in this nation, or has, and looking at that line literally divides this nation, it is not hard to come to the, that says a lot. It speaks volumes to where America's at right now. So many people are divided. Families are divided. But see, the Lord said that He came to divide. He didn't come here to keep everybody together, everything to be peaceful. That's opposite. So a lot of people will say, well, the peace be with you. Oh, absolutely. We want to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We want to pray because right now there are some things right now on the map in the news that point to what could happen to Jerusalem. And people don't really get the whole story about Jerusalem, but that is the canary in the coal mine. What happens to Israel, it seems like whatever happens to Israel, other things happen as a result. That's why we always look at what could happen to Israel as a point of reference. A lot of people will make the arguments about the Mossad and this, and I don't want to get into all that because that's too political. I'm looking at it from the perspective of what biblically is happening to the land of Israel, and the promise that God had made a covenant with Moses and Abraham. And many of those covenants, we right now don't understand the significance. When you break a covenant, what is going on in a marriage, what's going on in families, and I've really had a hard time with this. This is where I kind of gets into that gray area for me. So I can't really speak to that. But when I think about the promise that God made with us, He promised that He would not leave us or forsake us. And some of us who know anything about being stranded or stuck with nobody, that is really important. And there are just some topics out there that cause me to really get to my knees. And there's been confusion for so long about some of this stuff. So I always like to start where I ended, because to me, I don't have the understanding. I don't have a college degree on these things. And what made it more interesting is that all it takes is one thing to, like, the light bulb goes off, and then obviously we arrive here. So back in 2014, I went to my first prophecy conference in Florida, and I drove, and it goes back to what I've been stating earlier about all it takes is like something to change your mind about something. To me, this was a big one, and I can't say that I was Christian or this or that, but this was really the light bulb for me. And I thought, well, this is something I really want to follow. And there are a lot of people that are a lot of naysayers, but it's hard to get around the fact when you see where the eclipse and how it's traveling across the United States. I just love it. I just think it's a really interesting topic, and it's no wonder that our hotels are filling up, and there are people that are getting, they're making a big event of it, and it is a big event. And the reason I say that is because the Bethlehem Star, seeing that event, I was on vacation. It was a big deal. I mean, I made a whole night out of it. And where it was located, where I went to go look at it, I was at the Tri-Lakes in Branson, right over by the Powerside Dam, and it was just amazing. It was a beautiful night. So, I mean, just the mere fact of how beautiful a night it was reason in itself to why we wanted to follow it, because it's just a really neat topic. When you talk about the study of the Pleiades and the stars, and I mean, forget all the other stuff. If there was one thing that I wanted to spend more time on, it would be this topic. And that's what I'd like to do while we're on break, is talk about these events or just things that might come up. But this is a really fascinating topic. It's a reason that a lot of us who really got into studying eschatology or took a couple classes, it's just a really neat storyline when you think in terms of what's happening and what's ahead of us. But I think that is going to be the starting point. I think there will be things that are happening up to that point. And I think that's when you make, you're committed to following this and asking some of the other questions that come with it.